Of course, the birds see it way before we do, the early signs of new life in the spring. It's so nice to hear them singing about it. It gives me hope that it will come. Then the little green shoots start sprouting up. And then there was my younger daughter's talent show last week at her elementary school. The kids contagiously poured outside onto the playground after the show was over, even though it was 8 p.m. in the evening. It was not too cold, and the signs of new life were everywhere, including within inside ourselves. Just when I thought the cold was never going to end this year, it got warm and sunny. And I went out into my garden, and I saw a little baby flower coming up, this little baby hyacinth. And I kneeled down, and I put my face as close as I could to it, and I took a deep breath through my nose, and it was a miracle. Howard Thurman, the great preacher and spiritual advisor to Martin Luther King Jr., talks about the meaning of Easter as a glad surprise. Last weekend, I was out walking in the streets of Boston with members of our youth group as part of a service learning project about homelessness. We were learning about life on the streets from our guide, who was formerly homeless, and then the next day distributing clothes and food. But it was a rainy night, and no one was out. And then just at the end of our barren walk through the rain, a joyous surprise. Our guide saw an old friend who was sitting down on the ground outside of a CVS begging, and he brought us over to say hi. It was a joy to meet her, and she had the most joyous dog. I don't think I was the only one in the group who fell in love with the dog immediately. And all of a sudden, this was the meaning of our walk through the darkness. The joy of this encounter, the joy of getting to know someone who was in a very different life circumstance. When have you found new life or love or hope at the end of a long road? Welcome to Easter morning. Let us see what joyful surprises await us today.
Reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, verses 1 through 11 of the New Living Translation. Early on Sunday morning, as the new day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went out to visit the tomb. Suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled aside the stone, and sat on it. His face shone like lightning, and his clothing was as white as snow. The guards shook with fear when they saw him, and they fell into a dead faint. Then the angel spoke to the women. "Don't be afraid," he said. I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He isn't here. He is risen from the dead, just as he said would happen. Come, see where his body was lying, and now go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and he is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Remember what I have told you." The women ran quickly from the tomb. They were very frightened, but also filled with great joy, and they rushed to give the disciples the angel's message. And as they went, Jesus met them and greeted them. And they ran to him, grasped his feet, and worshiped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Don't be afraid. Go tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there." Here ends the reading.
My Baba and Didi, my Eastern Orthodox grandparents. And by the way, Orthodox Easter is also today. They've synced up this year. They taught us as children, I was a Unitarian Universalist kid, but they taught us their Easter greeting, Christos voskres. And that means Christ is risen. And the response, do you know, does anybody know it? Voistinos voskres, right? Or Christos anesti. I don't know the response to that one. But we'd go, Voistinos voskres, which is really fun to say. You can, I didn't understand the words really, and I didn't understand the whole Easter story. But I knew that people had done a terrible thing to Jesus way back a long time ago, and God fixed it. And forever after, my grandparents woke up on Easter morning and said, Christos voskres, Voistinos voskres to each other, and they were happy. That's what I understood. And also, the Easter bunny brought candy, and I got a new dress. So this is totally winning all around. That has stayed with me forever, really. I said last weekend that Jesus never meant to start a religion, but a movement. All the Easter stories are literally about movement, people running around. Did you notice that? All the action verbs when Linda just read that passage from the scripture. And of course, there's many Easter recountings of what happened by the different evangelists, Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, and the Acts of the Apostles, and so on. But the women go to the tomb. First of all, there's this rolling back of this big stone, and there's an angel or a person all in white, mysterious, sitting on a stone. There's like rushing in. Oh my God, a lot of this. Then please go, run, tell, run. And then Jesus appears. He's again, run. They're walking, they're running around. There's a lot of action. And on the road to Emmaus, the two of the disciples are walking along, and this man joins them who is a stranger, and they're talking about scriptures. Was this prophesied? Was this going to happen? And then it hits them after the stranger leaves. Wait a minute, that was Jesus. Wait, hold on, let's check in with each other. That was Jesus, right? So for the next 40 days, this is going on. Jesus is making these appearances, various places. In one letter to the Ephesians, Paul claims that he appeared to 500 people. Can you imagine if they all had Facebook? And they're like, oh my God, I was at this thing. And Rabbi Jesus was there. No, for real. In one post-resurrection appearance, Jesus makes lunch for everybody because that's part of his ministry. Fish, again, of course. He sees at one point the disciples aren't catching any fish, and he tells them, hey, cast the net over the other side of the boat. Try that. Voila, the net is full of fish. This is, of course, a metaphor, but again, it's very action-oriented. It's a movement. The Jesus movement became the Christian religion, which has historically involved a lot of heavy-duty thinking and debates among people, mostly men historically, sitting around tables and in libraries and seminaries and in very serious councils discussing what is the correct way to believe and be a Christian. They sat, and still do, discussing creeds and formulas and clarifying all the theological ideas that people are supposed to have, but really, the movement wants to move. Feed the poor, visit the prisoner, welcome the stranger, love the neighbor. There's a cartoon that I saw once with a smiling Jesus kind of sashaying out of the tomb. You see the big stone has been rolled away, and his arms are flung wide, and he's tilted like this, and the caption is, ta-da! Yes, ta-da! And while that flourish might remind us of a magician at the conclusion of a magic trick, it is not a conclusion, it is a beginning. He doesn't bow and go off stage, I'm done. In the story, he goes off to spend 40 days inspiring and heartening his community to continue the movement. His life was about living love, giving it hands, feet, a body, and a real presence. And he meant to pass that along and empower that, or empower his community to continue to do that. He would always say, whoever has ears to hear. What Jesus did not do was create organized plans and build a strategy for what should happen when he was no longer around to lead the movement. He didn't write any books. There weren't books back then, exactly, but do you know what I mean? Like, he didn't leave papyrus scrolls with detailed explanations on how to run the whole thing. He was on the move, leaving the people who encountered him and who were also taken up in the movement to record what they remembered and what they experienced, which is part of why his legacy is so chaotic. Perhaps that's intentional and a good thing, to not be able to pin down the exact information of what Jesus intended, although there are plenty who have always acted as though they were personally there with a camcorder, and they know exactly what happened, what he meant, and what we should do about it. Jesus knew he would not survive the violence of the Roman authorities. That was inevitable. And he left his community, therefore, not with a blueprint for the organization, because again, there really wasn't an organization. He left them with a commandment. You shall love one another as I have loved you. And you know what else he left them? A story. This happened to us. We shared an experience, and this is how it inspired us for the rest of our lives to be bold and courageous and loving. And he said, go and tell this story, because that's how you will bring others into the story. The best of all human endeavor, I think, has always been grounded simply in love and a shared story. Everywhere, all the best movements, whether they have been religious or secular, the ones that last beyond the death of their original founder and their original mission, last a really long time because they share a powerful story. And so we have to remember that we have inherited stories from many world traditions and world religions and wisdom teachers, but we are always creating a story too. So what is the story we are living? What is the story we are creating? You're creating it all the time. We share a story of vision. Things are not as they should be, and we have a vision of how it could be. We have endless stories about how we and those who came before us, our spiritual ancestors, have identified those wrongs and tried to make them right. We are adding stories to that story right now. Continued movement, continued momentum. And you know what? It's not easy, and you get tired, and you have to do like Jesus did, take a nap. We share a story of change and evolution, being humble enough to know that we might be wrong and are always willing to learn. We love learning. That is part of our story. We seek truth, and we know it's ever unfolding. We live a story of feeding each other. This is sacred. It's another Jesus behavior. It's a behavior that is understood to be a sacred story in many traditions. Again, I think of our meal on Thursday night that Megan continues to have with her, lead with her family, and this plant-based cooking. And I went in last week, or when you last had it, and the glorious smells, and they were chopping, and people were just absorbed in this work of their hands, and they were going to sit down and do this ancient, important, essential thing, just eat a good meal together. We live a story of song, of art, and worship, following in the ancient practice of coming in from the chaos and resting, regathering, regrouping for a moment to remember that God does a lot when we are doing our own thing. Christos voskres, remember? No one had to do that. You went to sleep on Saturday night and you woke up Sunday morning and it was done. Wow. Ta-da. When we shared signs of new life just a few minutes ago, we saw that there is evidence in the natural world, the deep gifts of springtime of our planet, where the purple pushes up through the soil through its own power. Except I'm allergic to hyacinth, so if I had bent over, I would have just started sneezing a lot, but daffodils and so forth. We only planted the bulb, pushed a funny little dried up thing into the dirt. Who could imagine such beauty coming from that? Well, somebody who knew that story taught us, and we taught our children, and they will continue to know that. Through no power of their own, put this dried up thing in the dirt, and ta-da. We share a story of community, of understanding and knowing that we are the latest generation of a long line of people who knew in their hearts and their deepest selves that they could not live with as much meaning and purpose if they stayed in their own private homes and private isolated environments. We know that, like the stone being rolled away from the tomb, like the blossom bursting forth from the confines of the soil, we, the people of the love movement, are being raised too, and we raise each other. We are also risen today. The poet and farmer Wendell Berry wrote these words. So friends, every day, do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful though you have considered all the facts. Be like the fox who makes more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection. you are also evidence of new life.